You can imagine the master sitting in front of you and giving you a sitting. It's the easiest. I find it. Who's giving me sittings? No, I'm giving you all sittings, but who's giving me a sitting? Often you find when you go to the source of a river, there is no river there. It's a source, a trickle of water between two rocks. Big deal. But as you come down, you find other trickles being added, and the mighty Amazon or the mighty Nile flowing out. So we are fed by so many sources, but similar sources. Not a gutter here and a sewer there and good water here, not like that. Nature sees to it. Nature is very blessed, very blessing. If you are on a path, it gives you everything that you need for that path. Even if you want to get drunk, it will send you friends who get drunk. It will show you only the pubs when you ride by. It's a very funny thing. If you're an architect and you're driving through Austin, you only look at the architectural features. If you want a pizza, you are looking for pizza areas. If you are after this, what is called this wonderful potato thing, McDonald's. French fries. And that big M, is appearing wherever you go. So we condition ourselves to see what we want to see, to eat what we want to eat. And when you are fixed and determined on reaching a goal in a particular path, like you have conventions of architects, conventions of neurologists, you don't find architects and neurologists in the same forum. So spiritualists come together, we call it a satsang, a seminar, and by accretion, like that, it grows, there's more and more self-support. It is like molecular, stability. If you knock out an electron out of orbit, the whole thing changes. Nucleus and one electron. Nucleus and two. There are levels. And the change is only by knocking out an electron, nothing more than that. Isn't it?
So can we imagine that divine love is surrounding our children all the time?
First you imagine, then by the strength of your faith in your imagination, you make it happen. And then if you are, if you are really devoted to the path, you can create it.
You get what?
Create that atmosphere,
I see.
I mean, a bulb with some tungsten filament or whatever is giving so much light. Yeah. And here is the human heart full of love and light. How do saints see, with their eyes closed, they see everything. I think it's the light of the heart which flows out and illuminates what you and I cannot see. But we believe in these things, you see. Things for which people have got Nobel Prizes. No? Nobody gives a Nobel Prize in spirituality. Perhaps there would be more faith in it.
Master, how do we be good role models for our children?
But I've just been talking about it all this time. Do what you would like your children to do. If you want your children to be clean, you be clean. See? If you want them to be moral, you be moral. If you want them to be truthful, you be truthful. But we train our children all in the wrong way. I have seen in India, telephone comes. Daddy, it's for you. Please tell the fellow that I am not at home. The father tells the child. And it says so. And later on it thinks, but daddy, you are at home. You are telling a lie. Don't talk to your father like that. Parental authority. So parental authority is always used to cover up our own faults. Isn't it? And where you have no faults to cover, you don't need parental authority. There's only love. That family is harmonious. It grows like a flower bed full of roses. Parental authority is always invoked when our ego is hurt. And our ego is hurt when our children question us. See?
When we're disciplining the children, how to keep the anger at the surface level just for that moment?
No anger at all. In education, there should be no anger.
That's interesting because she said discipline and you shifted it to education. So really the discipline should be a matter of education. Okay.
Disciplining is education. When you go to a driving school and they say don't exceed the speed limit. If it says 65, drive below 65. It is education. Yes. To do it is discipline. Following the dictates of education is discipline. You have a cookbook, break 2 eggs, okay, broke 2 eggs. Whisk it, whisked it. No? Now what? Pour it on the pan, pour it on. And that is discipline. What is discipline? Discipline is not marching to the commands and barrels of a drum, you say. Not that. Discipline is obedience to education. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. The 10 commandments, one of it says, I don't covet. I am disciplined, I am obedient, and my behavior is also correct. All the things go together. But if I accept it with the head and my body follows another path, it is indisciplined, it is disobedience, and it is tragic. You understand? So I don't see discipline as different from education. The two are one. The teaching is education, the following the teaching is discipline. That's all.
Sometimes children get very depressed about the world around them, and they express their depression in a number of ways, including saying, I just don't even want to live anymore. How do you suggest
You
parents...
must show the right side of life. You see, we all get depressed. Why children? I get depressed. I'm 73. I get depressed. I've examined myself very often. When I work and I look for results, I get depressed. You know. Or when I'm afraid that what I'm doing is not going to be productive, I get depressed. But if I don't care about what the result is going to be, but do my work because it is what I have to do, like the light burns, there may be nobody in this room, and it does not go to a huddle and say, oh, I'm depressed, there's nobody here to... No? So when we are able to detach the idea of the result, which is what the Gita says, you see, don't think of the result, he says, because the result belongs to me. I think there Krishna made a mistake.
Yeah.
My finding is that when I don't think of the result, I am confident. Because why do we think of the result? We only think of failure. Nobody is worried about success. No. He is going for a job interview, let us say. He is worried. Why? Because he may not get the job. Nobody says, oh, I'm going to get the job, I'm worried. Do you? Or my boss is calling me, he's going to give me a $50,000 raise. He's not worried. He goes, singing. So when we think of the result and the consequences of our action, we are always thinking of the negative side. Don't. And there's no trouble in life, there's no depression, there's no cause for worry. Even the lion, when it roars in the jungle, if it was worried about whether it's going to kill a goat or not today, it would fail. It goes out royally, and it gets. So the success or the secret of success is not to think of success. But unfortunately, the Western and especially the American tradition says nothing succeeds like success.
And children are taught all through their schooling that
All
to go
through schooling,
for
you must be number one, you must have the killer instinct, you must,
very
Yes.
competitive.
4-letter, 5-letter, 6-letter embellishments, isn't it?
You are successful if you have control over the results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the so-called difficult child? We often hear people say, oh, this is a difficult child. He
I
acts
have a
out."
feeling, it's a spiritual answer, not so much a sensible answer. I have a feeling that if people believe in samskaras, that a soul which is coming into this world against its every inner feeling and fiber, it rebels, it becomes rebellious. It doesn't want to be here. I mean, who would want to be here? If you knew the other life, and then, if you have read literature on near-death experiences, NDEs as they call them, many souls leave, but their time has not come, they come back, and they are weeping when they come back. They say, oh, why do I have to come back here? But we are here and we are trapped here and we don't know what is waiting for us and we are afraid of death. Now, a soul which has experienced the bliss of the hereafter, the afterlife, surely doesn't want to come back here again. It's like a man let out of prison. Would you like to go back into prison again? So difficult children are, in my mind, those souls which still retain some memory of that other life, And they rebel against coming here. Their birth is difficult. Their conception even is difficult. And with them you have to be very gentle, very understanding, and tell them, my son, I also want to be where you were, you see, but for the non-sphere here, it's like being in a plane and being buffeted by the winds, you know. Until you land, you are crazy.
That's a very comforting thought, actually. That's a very comforting thought, because I think at different times, all of us feel like we have the most difficult child. You know,
I mean, you see, it's a question of to what degree that soul keeps the memory of the previous life. Not a physical life, in between, you know.
right, okay.
And if that is very good, it's like going on a holiday, you know, where you really enjoyed yourself and then you hate to come back home. Children say, why have you got to go back home? Can't we be here 2 days more? Isn't it? Even when visitors come to your house and the children are happy, they don't want the visitors to leave.
Master, you may have already answered this question that I want to ask you. But you were a parent or a grandparent. What's the one thing that you learned in your parenting that you would most share with us?
Well, one thing that impressed me in my own childhood was, you know, my father, he educated us without ordering us. He never gave us orders. He said, you know, for instance, we were introduced to books at the age of 3, quite expensive books. Huh? When my father was earning 170 rupees, you know what 170 rupees is? Hardly $5. He bought books for us for thousands of rupees. And he didn't put them away and say children should not touch them. He left them on the table. He insisted that we don't dog-ear the pages. He insisted we don't open the pages and put it upside down on the table. This was education. And he used to cover our books with the craft paper, you know, cut it and show us how to bind it. We did all this. It was an education. And when you teach your child with love, it's a totally different story from insisting that you do something in an authoritarian manner. This is what I was taught by my dad, and I hope I've been doing it with all of you too in some way or the other.
I don't want to jump in front of somebody, but if I have a question about baptism, you know, because my family is Catholic and they're always concerned about baptism with Annalise, and we have not had her baptized because we just by now don't believe in it. But at the same time, when she was born, I brought her to you and wanted you to give her a blessing, and you touched her on the cheek, and I assume, you know, from that somehow, I don't know if Sahaj Marg has baptism or I mean, we don't have baptism, but what is the role of
We
baptism?
don't have a ritualistic baptism, but the first sitting is a baptism. You know, like you say, a soldier was baptized under fire. A soldier becomes a soldier when he is on his first war, not sitting at ease, you know, taking his girlfriend out in the jeep in the evening. So baptism really means, in the Christian faith, you see, like Jesus was baptized by John. It is to remove the ignorance which the past has put upon you. In a sense, when we are born into this world, we forget our divine existence, such as it was, and we come into a totally material existence. Now, a person of the caliber of Jesus or Buddha had to be baptized by somebody else to remove that ignorance. It's like, you know, you are taken into, say, a terrorist den with your eyes bandaged. But then it is opened there.
And does the baptism actually do that? I mean, I always assumed it was a
Not
ritual.
now, not now.
Yeah.
It has become a mere ritual. That's why Babuji said avoid rituals, because it is like, you know, sugar-coated lies, what you call white lies.
Should all Abhyasis' parents desire or wish that their children also become Abhyasis, or should we just let the children grow naturally and let time take due course?
My master said the only way a river can reach the ocean is by flowing ever lower and lower and lower and lower until it reaches the sea. Now, when we teach our children to ever go higher and higher and higher in something, we are going against nature. I don't think we have to lead children into something or entice them into something. Naturally, they will come. So long as you don't obstruct that natural flow into the right life. We do it all the time. We say no meditation. You are not, now examination time. 15 days, no meditation. Whereas if they meditate, I have several examples of children in my abhyas in Madras. One girl, aged 18, was with me for 6 weeks when I was traveling in the Himalayas. The day she came back, she had 3 days left for the exams. She topped in the whole university. Now, what was she doing? She wasn't studying books when she was with me. See, meditation clears the mind. It makes the thinking natural, sharp. Instead of promoting it, we say, no, you go and sit with your books. We can come to meditation after the exams. Now the child is taught 2 things. That meditation may harm my material progress. If I don't make the grades in education, I'm not going to be a computer specialist or a surgeon. I'm not going to get $500,000 like my dad. So you say no meditation 2 weeks, it says no meditation at all. Who's doing it? Isn't it?
I first used to tell my children, okay, I'm meditating here, you be in that room. And then later I realized I was creating a separation.
Yes.
So I left the door open and they said, we want to meditate. I said,
Yeah,
sit
you
next
just sit
to
down,
me.
close your eyes and sit. Don't do anything else.
And then after 5 minutes they went away and they said, we
Even
meditate.
meditation should not be, presented as something which is good for you or not good for your children. The principle is the same. You don't drink whiskey and give your child milk. You also drink milk if you want the child to drink milk.
So oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I was just, to follow up then, if our children express a desire to sit and meditate, they can sit quietly.
Let them sit quietly and think of God, whatever they want to see.
Yes. And
They will get
that's
tired
okay.
of it soon enough.
So we don't have to say you have to wait till 18
You don't have to say
sit.
anything. You tell them the formal introduction will be at 18. Like you can go to school only at a particular age. I can't put you in school at month 6. They understand. And when they insist on sitting with you with eyes closed, in 15 minutes they get up and walk away quietly. So what is wrong about that?
I know the answer,
Your
but
final answer.
a lot of people may want to know. Once somebody asked in Molina if it's okay when if kids can be in the same room when they're doing their individual cleaning in the evenings. If the children walk in and out of
They
the
can be there, no harm. Only thing they should not be on your lap or something like that. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master.
Because I told her the truth. I said, if your parents are doing it, it's their fault. It's not Sahaj Marg. Sahaj Marg doesn't say throw bread on the table like for a dog and leave it. Sahaj Marg says feed them first and come. And when she heard all this, she was weeping. And that night she went home. And I believe she lectured her parents from 11 p.m. till 3 in the morning on what love really should be and how they knew so little about it, even though I had 4 very pretty daughters from 15 to 6. Next morning she came, she refused to go to school. She came to where I was staying. And the parents came, very disturbed. She's not going to school. Next month her exams. So I put her in the car, took her to the school, dropped her. She came back in the evening. She wanted to go back with me to Madras. So I told the parents, what I could do in 1 hour, couldn't you do in a whole lifetime? Tell them the truth. No, you can't come. Why can't we come? Because I say so, So they think there's something innately wrong with Sahaj Marg. And they start hating it. And when they start hating it, well, it's very difficult to bring them in. But all the people with whom I have been successful are people who hated Sahaj Marg because of their parents. Many of these girls, they were runaways practically. Then slowly, it just takes one moment of honest talk. But today's society does not tolerate honesty. We want honest people, but no expression of honest opinions. We have to hide it under, so many coverings and trappings of etiquette and politeness and good manners. I have often told my European people, Abhyasis, that etiquette and politeness are the enemies of truth. Oh, how charming you look this morning, and in your heart you say, oh, look at this. There's too much hypocrisy in our society. So children are troubled. They don't know what is the truth, what is the lie. Whether the enemy is outside or whether the enemy is inside. Whether mommy who pretends to hug me and kiss me is really my enemy. Why? Because the society is built that way.
Master, Babaji has said religion is the kindergarten of spirituality, to give children an idea
Of God.
of God. And so I tell the children about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and about Jesus, and they ask me, Mommy, I want to see God like I see you and Daddy. And I said, well, God is in everybody's heart, and when you meditate, that's how you feel His presence. And they're insistent, they want to see like Mommy and Daddy.
I tell them when the time comes, you'll see it.
Master Annalise asked a similar question to that. She asked me, she said, Daddy, she said, if God created Master, then who created God? And it was one of the few times that I've been caught off guard with how to answer her, but I'd be interested
Yes, in the Veda, they called God Swayambhu, who has self-created. Even scientifically, we say the universe began as a singularity. A singularity is a dimensionless point. And when that exploded, what they call the Big Bang, this whole universe came into being. Now the first question is, how did this whole universe fit into that singularity? You can talk of infinite gravity and Einsteinian physics, but to the common mind like mine, it doesn't make sense. Okay, next question, how did that singularity come into existence? Which is the same as how did God come into a being?
Yes.
Now in science you are able to accept because scientists say so. But here you don't accept because the Pope says so, or some priest says so, or some fool like me says so. No? So this is again an effect of Western education, which makes you rely on science for truths, whereas scientists themselves say science only creates hypotheses. You are a scientist yourself. There is no truth in science, only hypothetical. Today's hypothesis is changed to tomorrow's hypothesis. No? So we have to teach our children, you must have enough, acumen to marshal all these things into one grand spectrum of presentation. If in science you can accept this immense universe, 20 billion light years across, came from a singularity. Like the egg in your mother's womb, which is going to bring you or which has brought you. There are parallels in science, in biology, in everything. The basic truth is from what we call the divine knowledge. The subsequent truths are scientific. You understand?
Yes.
But mind is conditioned to accept what is called scientific and to reject what is called religious or divine. So we have to change that conditioning.
Master, there's Lalaji has said, and you confirmed that the spiritual development can start at the moment of conception.
Yes.
Now, in another place I was reading, you also said that if it doesn't start then the child has to wait until
Yes.
age 18. So, but since all of our children are waiting until they're 18, what is that? Can you say something about what's the type of development that does start in the womb that is different than what we might do, say, if we started
You
to
see,
Hashmar
it's not a
Hef-
question of something different. It's a question of that which occurs naturally. At conception, if the parents are conscious of their spiritual obligation to what they are going to bring into being, in effect, the mating process becomes a spiritual process. It's natural. There's nothing against which anybody can rebel or criticize. But after the child is born, anything you introduce is from an external source, a source external to the baby itself. There, its rights, its needs, its idea of what it wants come into being. And you cannot have a conflict with that. So at age 18, presumably, you know, when it can vote, the child can also make up its mind, this is good for me, this is not. You understand?
It's but at 18, it's an act of will, so
Yes.
there's no
Yes.
conflict.
It must know why it is coming into the spiritual field. Like yesterday, somebody was giving a speech. This boy, James Joseph, he said he wanted to be a priest. He put up his hand without knowing what he was doing. No, we don't know what being a priest means, no. And all that he was told by his friend was, you can't marry. Look what you're missing. And that is the fundamental problem of life too, you see, because in religion, you have all these funny concepts of celibacy, of continence, blah, blah. No? My master has said very distinctly that if God wanted only one sex, he could have created one sex. Why did he make two sexes? So there's a purpose behind sex. The Catholic Church, you know, with all its problems of the priesthood, precisely because it goes against nature. In Sahaj Marg, we don't advocate sannyas because again it goes against nature. So we have to channelize nature into a way of life where it can also conduce to my spiritual growth. That is what a family is meant to do. And that is why families must not be broken up, must not be reconfigured, you know. Because there must be a stable environment in which the child can grow. Otherwise, like pulling out this plant, you know, planting it 6 yards away, day after tomorrow pulling it out and planting it there, what will happen to the plant? It will die. And our children are our plants, our seed, aren't they?
In the cases where that does happen, either through a divorce or perhaps the death of a parent, what advice would you give to the parent who is the abhyasi, who is the single parent perhaps, in working with their children to...
Well, you see, you know, I have an abhyasi in France who is 36, and she hated her mother and had not seen her for the last 18, 20 years. But there was also this inner love for the mother. After all, a mother is a mother, you can't forget her. So she used to come and sit before me in meditation, weeping her heart out. I said, look, you must have put an end to this. There's only one way. She said, what? I said, go to your mother, give her a big hug and kiss her. She said, oh, but I can't do it. I haven't done it for 20 years. I said, that's why you have to do it. And the mother is a cancer patient, you know, and nobody knows how long she's going to last. She accepted my advice, went home after 20 years of separation, hugged her, kissed her, and you know, voila, as the French say, it was blossoming. She said you could tangibly feel the change in the atmosphere of the room. The mother flowered. 6 months later, she died. And she said when she died, it was as if there were flowers all over the room. There was fragrance. There was, you know, bliss on the face of the mother. All because I said, you did what you should do. Now, we condition ourselves to do something based on what somebody else does to us. Do unto others as thou wouldst be done by, it says in the Bible. But it does not mean hate a man who hates you. If you would like him to love you, like him first. You see what a change has occurred in the social behavior. Oh, he hates me, I can only hate him back, Charity. No. You want him to love you, well, you love him first. You want him to be generous to you, you be generous to him first. But we don't do it. We are like echoes, you know, I shout out something evil and it comes back to me. We presume somebody hates before we even know that he hates or she hates. Our behavior must be totally free of all conditioning from outside. You understand? I behave as I behave because I am what I am. As we say in my language, Tamil, you don't bark at a dog because it barks at you. Isn't it? Then why should you bark at a human being who barks at you? So my behavior must reflect me, not be a reflection of your behavior to me. If we try this, we have a society which can be corrected like that. But we say, oh, I can't take that risk, you know, I may be rebuffed. That's your ego answering. What's so wonderful about you that you should not be rebuffed? Isn't it? You ask guys like the President of the USA, how often they have not been rebuffed by the Soviets in the former times. Yet, he said, and you walked out. So life is like that. If I want to be happy, I must be true to myself. I must be what I am under all circumstances. No Diwali, no lighting of lamps at home. I said, you want to live in darkness? Salman says, let there be light, you see. So there are many social things which are not harmful. And why not? We have a culture, we sing, we dance. What's wrong with that? You know, yesterday that Barbara Jean gave a speech about me watching a movie. Why not?
And my daughter, right now, she's very fascinated with bhajans. And she said, Mommy, let's do a puja in our house. And I said, okay.
You should tell her puja is not bhajan and bhajan is not puja.
Okay.
You can sing.
Okay.
Yeah, puja is different, you see. What is puja? It's an attitude, inner attitude, you see.
आफ़ताबे मारफत है।
So we thought we would come together and tell a few stories that are not on the tape that happened right after our conversations with Master.
Because remember, he invited us to go to the table and eat lunch with him
Right.
afterwards.
Right.
And it was as if the entire interview kept going.
Right.
And
So some real gems came up at the table that we never got to convey in the video. So we want to share a couple of those this afternoon.
And I remember someone asked a question as we were sitting down at the table. Someone asked a question about problem children. And my ears pricked up because that seemed to, of a particular interest to me. And he said, "There are no problem children. Would you want to be here if you remembered from where you had come?" And it answered a lot of questions for me, I think. So, yeah.
The story that I want to convey is a real simple story. When we were sitting with Master, I was tempted to ask a question about my daughter, and I restrained from asking because my daughter is adopted and she was going through a period of her life where she didn't want me to tell her story. She didn't want me to tell people she was adopted. That was her story and she wanted to tell it. And I had heard from someone, not Master himself, but I had heard from someone that when the child comes to earth, takes a human birth, that they come with the same spiritual approach as the father. And from that point, the mother takes over in the spiritual development. And so I wondered about the implications for adopted children, if that was the case, what had to do. And I was sitting there, and it had been somewhat of a pain in me. And the other day, someone talked about a splinter being removed from the heart, and there was that kind of feeling in the heart. So I wanted to ask the entire question to Master, but I got 2/3 of the way through the question, stumbling through the question. And Master stopped me and he said, "You tell your daughter that all children are adopted children. Any two people can create a body, but every soul has to be adopted." So at that point, the splinter was immediately removed from the heart, and I started getting tears in my eyes over dinner. And so I thought, you can't cry over dinner when you're sitting next to your Master. So I looked down the table at my husband, thought, I'll look at him and then I'll straighten up. And he had tears in his eyes. So I thought, oh, quick, look at somebody else. And then I looked at Marcia, and Marcia had tears in her eyes because it was such a rich and profound revelation to us that the soul, each soul has to be adopted. So that's what we wanted to be sure and share.
While we were sitting at the table, the phone rang, and I remember hearing the phone, and someone spoke, and then a sister came to the table and just bent down by Master's ear, and I could hear that she was saying that it was an Abhyasi who wasn't present, whose mother had just passed away. And Master just closed his eyes and took care of it, took care of that soul in such a quick, silent moment. I'm not sure other people at the table even saw it happen, but it made me, as a child who had a father who was quite ill at that time, know that my Master took care of all of us from wherever he was and wherever the other person was, no matter what was going on.
Irrespective of who we are.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, and that was a very profound revelation for me.
आफताबे मारफत नुक्तादा ने मार